system announcing the commencement of the annual purge sanctioned by the U.S. government. Weapons of Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the purge. All other weapons are restricted. Government officials of ranking 10 have been granted immunity from the purge and shall not be harmed. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be unavailable until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when the purge concludes. Blessed be our new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all.
For because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods, because of the lack of bread, and for great tribulation. 2 Ezra chapter 15, verse 18 and 19. Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash, and double honors to our venerable apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and blessings to the Lord's elect, the house of David. All right, so Brother Haran coming back at you with another lesson, lowell and to be edifying and uplifting unto the elect. All right, and I'm going to title this, A Time of Reckoning Has Arrived. Okay, a time of reckoning has arrived. All right, and when you go into that word, we're going to start off by going to that word reckoning. Okay, it says reckoning. It says a narration, account, right? Meaning it says a settling of accounts. It says act of counting or computing, a calculation, a bill of charges. Okay, a bill of charges. So basically, when you go into the concept of the day of reckoning, all right, going back to the, I believe the 16th or the 1600s, it was basically the notion of the Most High basically bringing down death or judgment on account of one's life. Okay, so basically the ending, the judgment day, so to speak. All right, so the day of reckoning has arrived, referring to the judgment that's about to befall, all right, the inhabitants of the world, but specifically the people of Babylon the Great. And this lesson was inspired from earlier today. You know, I just randomly thought about the movie, The Belko Experiment. Okay, and as I was thinking about it, I started thinking, I said, man, this movie came out back in, was it 2017? And I remember going to the theaters to watch it, and watching it, I was like, damn, this is crazy. Like, imagine this was happening in real life, you know, but in the real life sense, you know, of course, you attribute it to being in an office setting, just like you see in the movie. Okay, so that plays a role in your mind, right? Going into the perception being controlled through media, right? But then I thought of it in a bigger sense, right? That what if the Belko experiment was actually done in real life? How would that play out? And the first thing I thought about was The Purge. And that's also another movie. I think they had, was it a whole bunch of different Purge series or movies, I guess, right? You had the first Purge, you had Purge Judgment Day, I think. You had another one, Purge Election Year. Those maybe Judgment Day was off, but there was a whole bunch of them, right? The first Purge, right? Which is really the third Purge, I think, right? Something like that. But anyway, the concept of the Purge, which is the government giving you 12 hours or giving the people 12 hours to basically commit any type of crime, including murder. Okay, and that is a form of what they call, as the word purge, right, means to cleanse, right? And that's the rhetoric that you've been hearing, the tone at least, you know, which should be ringing alarm bells all across the entire world, which it really, right, which is Trump using verbiage like, we have to clean up our streets. Okay, we have to keep our streets safe. We got to get all these homeless people out of here, right? These are all people that don't really contribute to society, right? And when you look at Esau's ideology, or when you look at their tenets for the so-called New World Order, before they broke down the Georgia Guidestones, the number one law that they have on there was what? To reduce the population from however many billion, I believe now it's about up to 9 billion people. All right, they're going to bring it down to about 500 million to keep perpetual balance with nature. Okay, so when you think of that, who are the people they're going to go after? They're going to go after the people they deem to be called useless eaters. Okay, people who are straining the system. That's why you saw all these benefits being cut. They came up with Doge, Department of Government Efficiency, right? And that was to what? To basically expose certain things, quote unquote, expose the inefficiencies of government spending, right? Why do we have somebody who's 145 years old still getting, Social Security or whatever? These are bogus claims they made in order to cut back on people's so-called benefits, okay? And as a end result, what you're going to start seeing is, and of course you got this so-called government shutdown coming. The past couple of years, we've been seeing a lot of this, right? Where government shutdown's coming, government shutdown. If they don't come to an agreement, the government is going to shut down. And then, some way, somehow, mysteriously, they come up to an agreement and then everything goes back to normal. But something tells me this might be different. Who knows? But we'll see, right? And, you also had this enumeration of these so-called war generals that were called in to have a meeting in Quantico with this guy Hegseth. Okay, I mean it's almost like a joke, and they were just told, oh, you can't be fat, no more fat officers and generals and blah blah blah. It's like we need to stay in shape, and almost like a pep rally, right? It's like a war cry, like we need to get ready for war. We need to get in shape. We need to get our shit together, like that kind of thing, So it's almost like the government is getting ready to literally, as the scripture says, use a sword. Okay, go around, start slaying old and young, both small, little children, maids, women, men, everybody. Ezekiel 9th chapter, the 4th verse on down. Okay, so, just want to share what I was thinking about in regards to a couple of points, and that all pertains to prophecy, as we just read in the book of 2nd Ezra. Now, we know the prophecies, we understand the prophecies, we speak about these prophecies, but the way they play out, okay, that's the part that we're actually, unpacking, okay, because we see it every day. Things are manifesting it makes the prophecies much more clearer to us, right? As we get closer to it, it becomes much more clear, okay? So the first thing I'm going to pull up is the Belko experiment, right? Because it's a movie that I mentioned, and it highlights a couple of social and psychological experiments that has happened over the years that Esau is going to use this time on a mass scale. Okay, you're seeing it being done, through subversion, which is to get the population to get to a point where they are right now, where even if you present them with facts, they're still going to deny it. They still can't see it. Okay, like the famous words of Yuri Bezmenov. All right, he said the American people wants to get to a point where the subversion has gotten to its completion. He said, how do you find out? He said, you present them with the facts. You just tell them what you're gonna do. You show them everything. You show them pictures. He said you can get to the point where you could show them a picture of a gas chamber or some shit. He used an example of Nazi Germany, a gas chamber, and show it to them and say, look, these are the people. This is what happened to them. This is that. And they're still going to deny it and be like, nah, I don't see it. You just being a conspiracy theorist. And he said they don't realize it. They don't wake up until they're being hit in their face or in their head. Their back of their head is getting hit with the bottom of a gun, all right, by your military. Okay, so get ready. All right, but let's read a little bit about the Belko experiment and how it utilizes human nature, right, to bring about a certain outcome. Okay, and again, like I said, the system that we're seeing now is a build-up to that time we just read about, that violent time, a man, destroying his neighbor's property, himself, his neighbor himself, him or herself, right, because of what? For lack of bread and for great tribulation. So expect violence, okay, unrelenting violence, because when people are pushed to a point as Gerald Celente always, like Gerald Celente said, all right, and some time ago, he said, well, when the people have nothing to lose, they lose it. And we're starting to see people losing it. Okay, they're losing it. And they got a little something right now, and they're losing. Imagine when they have nothing. That's when you're going to see the chaos. Okay, and experiments have been done over the years to capitalize on these moments. All right. The first experiment I'm going to go into is called the Milgram and Stanford Prison Experiments. And there's videos on that on YouTube. All right, you could just type it in, the Milgram and Stanford Prison Experiments. And it's basically where they had these college students came in and they played two sides. Some of them were the prisoners. They played a role as an experiment. And some of them were the guards. And, you know, the more power that was given to the guards, the more abusive they became. Obviously, as the saying goes, power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. Or was it, how does it say? Power corrupts, but total power corrupts absolutely, something like that. Right? Let me see if I can find that. Let me see. Power corrupts absolute power. Let's see what it says. It says the phrase power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. There you go. That's what I wanted to say. Is a well-known maxim attributed to the 19th century British historian and political John Dalberg Acton, first Baron Acton. All right. So that was the saying, right? Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So when those guards got that so-called absolute power, as you're starting to hear so-called President Trump headsetting them, giving that kind of, you know, verbiage and saying, hey, go into Portland, it's a war zone, right? They call it a war zone. Department of War, Secretary of War, right? Go into the war zone and use as much force as is needed to bring that safety, to bring that peace, to clean out the streets, right? So that's that absolute power that's being given to them. And that absolute power, what is it going to do? Is going to corrupt absolutely. Okay, so you're going to see that. You're going to see these things play out. But let's read. It says, the Milgram and Stanford Prison Experiments, the film directly evokes notorious social psychology experiments, especially the Stanford Prison Experiment, which showed how ordinary people can quickly conform to brutal roles within an institution. In Belko, the employees are not just conforming to a role, but are also obeying a higher quote-unquote authority, the intercom voice, which is AI. Okay, and I believe there's a video that was going around circling, all right, of this AI depiction of when the CBDCs are officially made mandatory, or at least how the system is going to work with AI. Okay, that the beast system. Okay, and I seen the priest Amawang Gabar do a lesson on it. All right, and as I'm watching it, I'm like, yo, this is stuff that we should talk about like years ago. And the fact that you got, and guess who came up with that advertisement? It was Palantir. Okay, it's almost like they're fucking with people, man, and they're targeting a specific group. You notice the energy right now is mostly focused on so-called Christians, because that's the last stop. Once they start coming after the Christians, that's biblical prophecy. Once they start coming after those who stand firmly for the truth, they're gonna use modern day Christianity as an excuse, all right, to blame our ministry, the truth, the actual truth, the true Christians, all right, the true Hebrew Israelites, the prophets. Okay, so you can see the verbiage, like the CK situation had Christianity involved in it. Oh, he was a Christian man, da da da. It's like, okay, so this is off the Christian man. Let's see how the Christians react to this. And then, like, I think a few days or a week before that, you had the whole Annunciation Church in Minneapolis. That guy, you know, the kids were in there, and then this guy, crazy TG guy, goes in there and mows them down and blah, blah, blah. Never found out what actually happened at the end of it, what investigation was done. They just tell you, oh, this guy came in and blew everybody away, and then boom, we just report it and go about our day. Nah, it doesn't work like that. All right, that's all staged anyway, right? So you have that going on, and then last couple of days ago, you had another shooting in several states, and it had to do with churches. There was one that was burning down. I believe it was a Mormon church or something. So you're starting to see the energy shifting towards those who claim to be Christians, right? The concept of Christianity, the concept of God, and, you know, that kind of thing, right? Even though it's flawed on the left, it's flawed on this side, it's still the concept, the energy, the spirit behind it. Okay, because ultimately it's their gateway to get to us, the true men, the true speakers of the Bible. Okay, so that video, going back to that video, that's going to be the authority. All right, AI Antichrist, you know what I'm saying, the AI Antichrist, so to speak, the concept, which you have Peter Thiel, which he has no business talking Bible stuff. He's coming up and saying, well, if we don't allow AI to do its thing, then it's going to pave the way. Like if we stop AI and we regulate AI, that will pave the way for the Antichrist. So we should allow AI to keep doing its thing. That's the only way we can stop the Antichrist. Dickhead. You know, but that's what you get in the age of deception. All right, with a deceiver like him. All right, but they're using their technology to become that authority figure. Right. So going back to the reading, it says, in Belko, the employees are not just conforming to a role, but are also obeying a higher authority. Okay, mirroring the themes of obedience to authority seen in the Milgram experiment. Situational ethics and moral collapse. The narrative forces employees to make horrific moral calculations under pressure. So we're living in America right now where that pressure is mounting, it's building. And I was telling my Eve the other day, I said, yo, don't be surprised when you start hearing people screaming right next door neighbors like getting into fights and screams and police pulling up. And it becomes so much where they're not even calling cops no more. It's like you're hearing people get beat up. You're hearing couples arguing, you know, like there's instability everywhere. Why? Because times are hard. You know, like when you don't have money, you don't have money, but you're still living a life that demands you to have money in order to function. Right? Every day you got to have some type of money on you. If not, shit, you got bills, you got this, you got that. You know, so you're living a life that requires you to spend. You have to have some type of currency. So when people start to, you know, their currency starts to dwindle, and there's no recuperating of that dwindling, you're going to start seeing them be violent. You know, a man come home, you know, he just got fired from work. He's been home a couple of weeks. His wife is still working. She's doing all the heavy lifting. She's starting to get a little tired and upset. She got to take care of the kids. Maybe the grandparents probably moved from a different state because they can't hack it. So they got to come live with, you know, the family now. So it's a bigger family, more mouths to feed, you know. So everyone is laying on top of each other. You know, everyone is crowded now because you got to make ends meet. You know, they ain't got no jobs. They've been sitting at home all month, all summer, all winter, whatever. And after a while, yeah, it's grandpa and grandma. But after a while, them being with you for so long, you know, depleting your resources and not adding to it, it builds frustration. And eventually it'll boil over when everybody becomes laid off in the family and nobody's bringing in no bread. How you going to pay the bills? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? It starts to escalate tensions. You're going to start seeing domestic violence take a whole nother level. Suicides take a whole nother level. Like people can't deal with this shit. And then what happens when the crisis really broadens, where now it's affecting your medication and all these, again, we're in a mental asylum. These people ain't got no meds. They're going to lose it. So couple all that. This is a big ass, America is becoming a big ass concentration camp with prisoners in it. Right? Like the movie Dinner with Andre, the soliloquy that he gave, you know, he pretty much summed the whole thing up about New Yorkers and they've been lobotomized and all these different. Watch that little clip. See? But it explains everything that's going on right now. And it wasn't just back then he was using New York as an example, but New York really has become America itself. Okay, and they're going to use AI to be the prison guards. Okay? Just like it was depicted in that little video I mentioned earlier. Okay, AI is going to be policing everything and everyone. Oracle is going through that right now. They're doing that right now. Larry Ellison, have you heard what he's been saying lately? Okay, and Oracle is working hand in hand with the government. Open AI, they all, yo man, this thing is, they're building a big ass concentration camp, bro. And they're using this whole border shit to situate the police force right around to make sure that when they clamp down, people can't go nowhere. You're in prison. Okay. A big ass prison, and your behavior, you have to comply. You're gonna have to move right with this whole social stuff that they're doing. Right. So going back to the reading, it says the narrative forces employees to make horrific moral calculations under pressure, As the deadlines pass and more people are killed, individual morality erodes, obviously, right? And survival becomes the only objective. See? Man having no pity upon his neighbor for lack of bread and for great tribulation. You couple all that shit, listen, people not going to be looking at each other like, look, man, we have to work together. At first, it might come off like that. But after a while, when the squeeze really gets, the grip gets a little tight, people going to start thinking differently. All right, you're not going to be seeing that teamwork shit. Like, it's going to go out the window. Okay? Because the prophecy doesn't say, oh, people just going to work together and live happily ever after. Nah. It says a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor. So shit. All right, that moral, that individual morality has to erode for a man to have no pity upon his neighbor. It says, and survival becomes the only objective. Meaning, if I gotta take you out to survive, then that's so be it. You see, the film argues that moral fortitude is not innate, but is fragile and easily discarded in a desperate situation. That is 100% correct. If you're not of the elect, okay, if you don't have the Lord with you. You go and do. That's why was it the Book of Proverbs, where King Solomon was asking the Lord to give him neither poverty nor riches, right? Or it might be the Book of Psalm, one of them, right? Don't give me neither poverty nor riches, because if you make me rich, then what if I become so rich and I basically like just discount the fact that you put me in this situation, right? You know, I forget my God because I got it all, or you make me so poor that here it is, I'm forgetting my God, I'm forgetting my integrity, my morals. I'm here doing all kinds of crazy shit because I need to survive. I'm stealing, I'm breaking into people's homes and doing all kinds of shit, right? So the point is to have a balance. But Americans don't understand balance, okay? There is no balance with them. They haven't been trained to understand balance. And that's how it's going. You're going to see it. You're going to see it. You'll see, right? It says revealing true human nature, right? It says the controlled corporate environment hides the true nature of the characters. Once under duress, some reveal a selfless desire to protect others, while previously unassuming colleagues quickly devolve into cold-blooded killers. Right? So you go, like I said, the families, it's going to be crazy. Right? This reflects the idea that you never know who you really are until you are pushed to your limits. Okay? It says the experiment is conducted for the detached observation of an international organization, revealing the cruel indifference of some of the suffering, indifference of some to the suffering of others. This reflects how real-world atrocities can be perpetrated or enabled by people who emotionally and morally distance themselves from the consequences of their actions. It says, let me see. The most direct allegory is drawn in a scene where the company's COO under orders, remember, it's always under orders, okay, under orders. I'm just following orders. Remember, you just keep that in mind. Executes the most expendable employees. So if you end up in a C camp or like Trump and them been saying, hey, if you homeless and we come and we give you the option, you either get mental treatment or we're going to send you someplace else, wherever that place means. Okay? In other words, you're going to be unalived. We'll take you to a place where we're going to unalive you because you become a useless eater. We don't have a place for you here. You're homeless. We're not going to build no homes for you. We don't want people here. So if we manage to get you to that point where you're just homeless and you're just, just out there, you ain't got no protection, you ain't got no, value to society, what's the point of having you? Just keeping your niggas around? Who's going to feed you? Who's going to take care of you? Wipe them all out by the millions. Okay? That's part of the plan. Again, Ezekiel 9th chapter, the 4th verse on down. Okay? So it says here, Director Greg McLean explicitly linked this scene to real-world corporate layoffs. Have you not been seeing that lately? I'm talking about by the millions, people getting laid off left and right, both blue-collar and white-collar jobs. All across the board. Okay? Where executives make inhumane decisions to destroy lives for the bottom line. Okay? And America is pretty much going through the same thing. All right, so pretty much a few points. All right, highlighting the movie, what it was depicting, and how that could play out in real life. Okay, the horror that will play out in real life, as Albert Pike said, they're going to unleash the nihilists. You got the New York mayor coming in. He's going to open the floodgates for all kinds of crazy ass, wild shit. Okay, again, they have to be, that controlled opposition to be able to bring that balance, to stir up that energy. In order for the magic to work, you need both sides. All right, and these devils go into that. All right, they go into that so-called perfect balance, the yin and the yang, the male, female, all that bullshit. They always deal with balance, but it's on the left-hand side. Okay? They go into like the balance and the force, and in order to have the force, you need to have the balance and the this and the male and the female, the whole androgynous demon shit. These devils ain't shit, bro. All right? Annoying ass shit. Disgusting. Okay? But that's one point with the Belko experiment. And the Belko experiment was a prime example, along with the Purge and all these other movies that they show, prime examples of what we call predictive programming. Okay, and we brought it out before, but we're going to touch on it just a little bit to refresh your memory, right? Predictive programming, otherwise known as revelation of the method. All right, so let's read. It says, revelation of the method, or RUM, as it's often abbreviated, is an occult art wielded by the puppeteers behind the scenes of our society. All right, that goes into the elites. All right, they control all aspects of society. All right, it runs through the J's. Okay, the small hats. They have all control over the earth, as is written in Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. Okay, Malachi, the first chapter, the 4th verse tells you who the wicked is. All right, as a matter of fact, you know what? Let's get that. Gotta cook these devils every now and again. All right, read it verbatim, All right, so the book of Job, chapter 9, and verse 24 here says, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, right? The earth is given by who? As it tells in the book of Daniel, that the Lord, he ruleth among men. All right, he giveth the earth and power to whomever he wants. All right, it says he removeth kings and he setteth up kings. All right, so the Most High is the one who gave these devils this power. He gave them that power. Okay, as it's written in the book of Revelation, I believe the 6th chapter, it says power was given unto the red horse. Okay, power was given onto him. So they have that power, they have that control. But yet they turn around and say, oh, we're being victimized by you saying that we have the power over the earth. Nigga, that's your blessing. Why are you trying to make it seem like it's a curse? You have the power over the earth. Everybody knows that. Who runs the world, bro? Who are the people you can't speak against? It's very evident. And end time prophecy doesn't say that the people of this earth, at least the children of Israel, are going to have this kind of power at the end when the return of the Messiah comes. No. The whole concept of the Bible was to give us that hope that we're going to be liberated from underneath the clutches of our enemies, who are going to have the power in these last days. So much so, as the scripture says in Revelation, I believe the 19th chapter, who shall make war against him? Oh, no, I think 13. Right? Who can make war against this beast? You can't. Right? Who shall make war against him? You can't. So we need that outside force. Yahushai, he the deliverer, to come in and deliver his children up out of here, man, starting with the elect. Okay? So Esau, you can't be the one oppressing everybody and then turn around and say, I need to be delivered. Who you being delivered from? We need deliverance from you. Okay? We're not the ones who have billions of dollars. We're not Larry Ellison. We're not Sam Altman. We're not Billy Gates. All right? We're not any of these people. All these technocrats, Elon Musk, all them niggas are not Jakes. They're not so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. They're all Jays. You go back to their lineages. You see it. Klaus Schwab, he's a direct descendant of the Rothschilds. And he's ahead of the WEF. Okay? All these devils that you see on TV talking shit, telling you how you're going to live your life and be happy and shit. Bro, they're all Jays, man. And they have the power to control and construct the world that we're living in and what's to come. So don't come around here telling us about all this. No. You are the Edomites of the Bible. And the Lord said he's going to make your mountains desolate. Okay? So get ready for that. All right, so Job 9:24 says, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? Okay, and then when you go into the book of Malachi, right? It says here, Malachi chapter 1 verse 4 says, Whereas Edom saith, We are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, power of hosts, They shall build, but I will throw down. They shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord Yahweh hath indignation forever. Okay, indignation means what? Righteous anger, forever. You can't get out of that. So we don't want to hear nothing. We don't want to hear it. All right. So let's go back to the point. All right. So the point I was making in the revelation of the method, who are those who are behind the scenes? The wicked, the elites. Okay. They go into the Kabbalah and the Talmud and all this witchcraft, every left-handed energy. Okay. The dark occult mysticism, so to speak. All right. The cup of the of abominations. All right. It says it's the practice of revealing hidden truths and sinister agendas in plain sight, cloaked in symbolism and subtext. Right. They show you all in photos, videos, you know, films, broadcasting, words. Right. That's why it's so important to look into words. All right, because words, you have to spell words. Words goes into witchcraft. You can use it on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Okay. So it says here, it's the method by which they toy with your collective psyche, forcing you to create or forcing people to co-create a future they never asked for. Okay. Primary reaction solution. Right. They create a problem, and based on the people's reaction, they come out and give the solution that people would have never wanted until that crisis that was created or that problem that was created came about. Okay, which is all orchestrated. See, because it's always convenient how they always the ones who have the solutions, and it's always right then and there. Something happens. Oh, gun control. Yeah, what? Do some investigation, man. Oh, we need to keep our people safe. Let's lock everything down. Come take a jump shot. It's gonna keep you safe. It says, through the magic of storytelling and media, they manipulate people's perceptions, influencing their choices and bending their reality to their will. See, the concept of revelation of the method has a sibling in the form of predictive programming. This method serves to gently introduce and familiarize the public with future events or ideas, subtly shaping our perceptions and, more alarmingly, our acceptance of them. It's like a spell planted in the minds that not only steals your free will, but also leads you to co-create outcomes you wouldn't want. The media and entertainment industries are their chosen medium, weaving these spells into the narratives that people consume daily. Okay, so it's very important that they put this stuff out there because, number one, it shows you what's going to happen before they happen, but it's depicted in a movie or show or music video or whatever, video game, right? Speaking of that, I was talking to brothers earlier today. Interesting, because there's a new video game coming out called Battlefield 6, right? And I believe it comes out next week or a week after or something like that, sometime in October. And there's a mission, right? Interesting. There's a mission in there that you go into Brooklyn under martial law, where in the mission, the lady says it like, oh, you're going down there, and she says something about Brooklyn is under martial law. Okay. And you actually go into Brooklyn, like New York City, like you go into Brooklyn, right? And you start shooting shit up or whatever. Like, you know, it's a mission. Okay. But again, who's coming up with these, Modern Warfare, Call of Duty love games? They always get intel from the CIA. Okay, the CIA, you play some of the missions, you'd be like, yo, what the how did they get all this detail? Like, how did they come up with this? They work with the CIA directly. All right, Central Intelligence Agency. So they mixed hand in hand with the media, video games, all that shit. All right, it's all to control the minds of the people. Okay, get your mind ready for whatever they're going to do to you next. All right, so the Purge, the Belko experiment, these are all at least two movies that you could think of right away and say, if this was to happen in real life, how are we going to go about it? That's why you got to think about these things like, hey, the Lord got us. He's going to take care of us. Okay, he's going to take care of us. All right. There you go, right here. Just a little bit right here. The Belko experiment is a hyper-violent satire that explores psychological and sociological phenomena by exaggerating the worst aspects of corporate culture. In this case, we're going to say American culture, right? And human behavior under extreme pressure. By forcing ordinary people into a kill or be killed scenario, the film reflects real life by examining themes such as social conformity, situational ethics, and the dehumanization of corporate life. Again, eliminate corporate and put in American life. That's exactly what you're seeing now, even from top to bottom. The president saying dehumanizing shit like vermin and gotta clean these criminals and these all kinds of shit. All right, they're putting that rhetoric out there to get you ready for the persecution of those who speak against or stand up against this wicked ass system that's being built. Okay, and who are the ones who they're going to be coming after? The elect men of the Lord, starting with the prophets. Okay, starting with the prophets, man. All right. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I want to bring out real quick. All right, but again, remember this. I'm gonna bring this out one more time. All right, there's a book of 2 Ezra chapter 15. Start with a little bit, a few verses up. Verse 14 says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another with swords in their hands." All right, people being pushed to the brink of having nothing. Eventually, they're going to storm the streets to try to take each other out. Okay, because they're going to be promised certain things. The more you take people out, the more, points you could have in order to eat or whatever. Esau's a devil. All right, he's a devil. And most of the times, these movies are being done by some elite sitting back somewhere watching this shit, watching it all play out. They're going to be in their bunkers watching all this shit unfold up here on the earth, man. All right, people fighting against AI and Alex Karp and Peter Thiel, sitting in some bunker somewhere drinking some crazy shit, adrenochrome, right, and watching people go crazy. They gonna love it, right? Meanwhile, the Lord gonna bless His man with spiritual power. We gonna be taking shit out, man. It's gonna be amazing, man. It's gonna be something. All right, so get ready, and these devils know. All right, verse 16 says, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." Okay, again, desperate times call for desperate measures. "A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid." Okay, so get ready. Think about that. All right, think about that. All right, it says, "A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for a great tribulation." Belko experiment, being pressed under extreme pressure, all right, and required to take each other out. If not, they're going to just start taking people out. That was a plot. Okay, and then the purge, the government gives you free range while out for the next 12 hours. It could be more than 12 hours. Again, it's about the concept of it. All right, that the government could give its citizens free range to commit all kinds of crime, including murder. Okay, that sounds pretty much like what we're reading here. All right, a man having no pity upon his neighbor, but destroying their houses with the sword. All right, you destroy somebody's house with a sword, sometimes you might end up killing that person. And spoil their goods for the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Okay, so that's the times that we're in, man. All right, and ultimately, of course, the time of reckoning has arrived. Anyway, I'm going to leave it off there. Lord willing, you are edified and informed. In closing, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakodash, the water Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. And until next time, Shalom.